Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the RedSeaPodcast. Welcome back to one of the few early morning, not early morning, early midday editions, relatively early-ish compared to most episodes at least. And welcome to another basketball recap, another double week recap that we haven't done in a minute because, of course, I missed a couple of chances to do so with my surgery recovery. But here we are. And what a double week to return on. But before we get into that and a few more things, first of all, a lot of you asked, and this is the shirt I was talking about yesterday, the Conference League winner one. It's one I wanted, and it's one I got gifted, luckily and thankfully. So expect to see this shirt a lot more, and expect to see the jerseys in the back as proper background, except from the football mostly, which I will be wearing no matter how freezing it is at some point. But yeah, as always, as I get back into rhythm myself, because of course the last episode a couple of days ago was my return, and I still needed a bit of time to get readjusted. Um, the link is down below for whatever you may need. The link is in the comments as well for you to join me. If you so wish, share your opinions. You just copy the link that I have. Is it right here? I still remember my flipped cameras. The link that I have right here, you copy and paste that into Google, and you can join me here live to share whatever your opinions are on whatever subject we're talking about. I do usually drop these links on the solo shows, so even if you're listening after, if you catch the next show, you will more than likely be able to hop on. And of course, there's a QR code that I always have prepared that you can scan that just popped up if you're watching on video right here. And that QR code will take you to the link tree, in which, of course, you can find all the socials needed. Now, slowly but surely, let's get into the highs and the lows of this week. That's certified PTSD. Yeah, mental preparation to see a constant reminder of how we beat you guys in that insane semifinal. Now, the Valencia game. I'm still. It's been a couple of days. We saw yesterday's game as well, and I'm still mostly trying to process how that game happened. I'm mostly trying to process how we went from a close, very offensive game to actually pulling away by, I think, even 14 at some point. Let me actually check that I'm not saying some BS. Yes, okay. Pulled up by 10 plus at some point. And then we go into the fourth quarter, and then just chaos ensues, right? A horrible fourth quarter of getting double scored. The fourth quarter itself was 16-32 with an inclusion of a horrible record of us conceding 41 in the last 12 playable minutes of the game. And I've rarely seen such a game of 4 completely different quarters, right? We go into the first and we're playing Valencia basketball. Like, that's clear from the second minute of the game that we're playing fast-paced, attacking basketball. which doesn't fit Olympiacos at all this season, and that's clearer than ever. And we have a first quarter ending 27-25 in our favor. Then in the second quarter, the game dies down a bit, but it's still a very attacking, focused game. Still very close. Still no one taking that much of a lead. And we end the half basically even, or as even as it gets. We end the half 47-49. And then you say, yeah, okay, this game's gonna be close up until the death, but we need to pull through somehow. And then we head into the third quarter, looking like the Olympiacos we haven't looked like the entirety of the season. Damn near perfect at the back, damn near perfect up front, dominance, slow, passing basketball, pass-first basketball, and smart decisions. And we end the third quarter 76-67. And I and many others, I think, are looking hopeful that we will actually see a tough game out quite comfortably, despite the end of the third quarter looking a bit shaky. Like even the third quarter was divided, in my opinion. And then we head into that absolutely cursed fourth quarter. And the Olympiacos we saw, even solely attacking-wise for the previous three, just magically disappears. And we get destroyed. Do not say anything worse this early in the stream. We get absolutely shown up in our own home, not for the first time, and we're left speechless. The team showed like they gave up. The team looked lost after a certain point. The team looked completely lost after a certain point. And then you go and look at specific performances, and you see that there are good performances. Like the team, it's what I said after the game. It's not that the lost game. Like, yeah, okay. It's how the lost game. You play steady defensive basketball and very good attacking basketball for 3 quarters, 2.5, and then you just give up. And of course, chaos ensues. There were even a couple of boos at Peace and Friendship Stadium at Chef. And then the team has to take a hard look upon themselves. Each and every single person, but minor exceptions. Of course, someone like Milutinov, someone like Thomas Walkup, someone like Sasha Vezenkov, they were bright lights of a very dark night. But except from that, you had people either playing below their standards or playing out and out horribly. And then you have to take a step back and realize that something is very wrong. From the top of the top to the last person in the team, something is very wrong. We knew that, okay? And it's as I said, nothing's done, right? No season is over. even if the Villeurbanne game wasn't it and we were just talking after the Valencia game. No season is over. But every single person from now on needs to take a hard look at themselves, to find their motivation, find the true meaning of representing this team, find weaknesses personally and as a whole, and realize that Olympiacos is fighting until you can't stand anymore and not giving up 3 quarters into the game. And again, there's a lot of serious talks that need to happen, and we'll see how stuff is going better and better as time goes on. And of course, the Villeurbanne game, which we will properly get to in a bit, isn't really conclusive, because after all, it is Villeurbanne, right? And it's up to a point, it's the bare minimum, but I gave it a different spin yesterday, which I'll explain here as well, a bit better and a bit more detail. But what we saw yesterday, and some specific aspects to what we saw against Valencia, and again, I can't talk about the Barcelona game because I didn't see it. So if anyone wants to add something in regards to how we played against Barcelona and how what I'm saying adds to that, do drop that in the comments because I couldn't see that game. It's a difference in mentality that needed to start somewhere. And if the team went into the Villeurbanne game and said, we're going to give it our all, get as big of a win as we possibly can, and pick up form, momentum, and confidence, most of all, then for me, that's exactly what the team needed to do. And again, we'll see that as time goes on. We can't say basically anything right now. We can't say, yeah, we beat Villeurbanne by God knows how much and in God knows what way the team's back. It's not. And no problem is suddenly gone. It's like Evan said, the team's going through a tough period right now. And that's why the team needs us more than ever. And I'll get into perhaps not the biggest problem, but a problem nonetheless. I've been noticing a difference in the past few years, as have we all. ASVEL and in general, the division I've talked about a lot within the basketball fan base, the people at ASVEL that shouldn't, I'm sorry, but shouldn't be going. The people that want to go, but they can't, they physically can't, for one reason or another. I've said this before, and I'm pretty sure I've said it verbatim, but I'll say it again. We are talking about a team that has one of the best fan bases in Europe by heart, one of the most passionate, and one of the craziest. Perhaps one of the most overreacting as well. And if you take steps in taking that away, and you strip a team of a home field advantage that can be one of the best in Europe, then you take away half its power. Because yes, of course, the coaching is detrimental. The player quality, the player motivation, player form But especially in a sport like basketball, the fans play such a big part in it, motivating players, in helping them understand that the fans are behind them. And when either no people or the wrong people go to the stadium, and you have a situation where it's just Gate 7 that's as loud as they should, and the rest of the stadium is just dead. When you have a situation that got presented to me that some people want to yell for the team, and they get strange looks in the goddamn stadium. That's unbelievable. To me, that's arguably the most frustrating thing that's been happening. And then you look at yesterday. You look at the stadium being more empty. Thankfully, more full than I expected, but more empty than usual nonetheless. But you hear the stadium being louder. And why is that? That's because the right people were there. The people that are behind the team. The people that should be there. The people that know what it means to help the team in any correct way. Even if it's going through horrible times. Which again, let me backtrack and tackle something else. These aren't horrible times. Like for those of you that haven't been watching for a while, and even me, for those of you that don't know or maybe are new, I am 21 years old. I've missed a lot of tough times for this team. That's why I'm hesitant to talk about the tough times of Olympiacos. But these aren't tough times. Yes, okay, it's a rough period for the team. Also, I apologize about my chair. I'm trying not to move around too much. These are tough times for the team. This is a tough period, but these aren't any dark ages, right? And the team still deserves the support. Nothing is over yet. Not by a long shot is anything over yet. Everyone needs to take accountability. From the people not going to the people that are going and not supporting the team. That are going for the eyes of the people that are going to just go. So, as a collective, we need to take the accurate responsibility. Fans, presidents, coaching staff, players, and realize that nothing is fucking over. Nothing is. And nothing will be for a while. And as long as we avoid that circling spiral that the team was threatening to go down on, and even if the rise isn't astronomical, and we go again, step by step, positive by positive, everything is going to be much better, much faster. And before I get into the Villarban game and the positives, the goddamn positives that were much needed, we need to also sometimes take a step back and breathe. We need to take a deep breath sometimes. Me included. Someone that I admire very much from within our community told me something after the Valencia game when I messaged him. And he said that when you write about the team, you need to try and take a step back and breathe and use logical thinking. That's when proper criticism comes out, proper credit where it's due comes out, and not an emotional flare of bias, right? And whether you're writing for the team as often as I am, whether you're writing for the team once in a while, or whether you're writing for the team as a fan, as an out-and-out fan, I feel like that advice goes for everyone. It strengthens the point that I used to make, where criticism isn't just welcome, it's needed right now. But absolute toxicity and demolition and just the end all and be all of everything is only going to make things worse. And we are a main driving force of this thing, and we need to realize that. And I feel like a big portion of the fans realized that yesterday, and I'll get into that in a second. The true sportsman gets behind the team no matter the circumstances. I think that's one of the most plain out and out, simple but effective statements that I've ever read from a comment. And yeah, it's exactly that. It should be. It's not, sadly, but it should be as simple as that. That especially in cases like Olympiacos, also forgive me for completely looking the other way, I'm just pulling up the Villeurbanne game, especially in cases like Olympiacos, where, as I said, the fans are not just as fierce as we are, especially the people that go to the stadium constantly, right? But when the fans play such an important role in the team's success, in the team's form, in the team's motivation, we need to be behind them because they do deserve it. They really, really do. And before I get into the Villeurbanne rant that I wanted to make, Olympiacos is one big family, a gigantic family, one of the most successful in the world and one of the strongest in the world. And families have issues, always. But those issues need to be solved within the family. If people within it try to divide it, that's only going to make things worse. I don't care if it's football, which of course is the strongest and most popular member of the family, basketball, water polo, volleyball, handball, or whatever the fuck. The successes of Olympiacos should be celebrated equally. And it's more than okay in my book if you wouldn't care about any sport, and that's fine. But you can still not care and celebrate the successes of your team in said sport. To diminish one part of the team in aims to raise another, and to diminish fans that support anything Olympiacos, and to diminish most of all successes of this part of Olympiacos and say that this part's successes are most important. I'm sorry, but for me that's plain stupid. It's okay to not be interested in something. But if you say that you're an Olympiacos fan, at least in my book, what I would be expecting is for you to say, oh, we won the league in that? That's amazing. Not to say, oh, yeah, okay, yeah, that's fine, let's move on. At least in my book. Now, because that's enough ranting for the first 25-30 minutes of this episode, let's get into the Villeurbanne game, shall we? Of course, the bare minimum of this game was a 20-30 point victory. That's exactly what happened. Villeurbanne were nowhere. Villeurbanne kept making mistakes. Villeurbanne showed why they will probably be gone from the Euroleague next year. A team that doesn't really look like a team that can't really keep a steady momentum, and a team that simply just isn't good enough. Before I say anything at all, I want to just give my thoughts to the Villeurbanne player. I'm pretty sure it's Traoré. I'm sorry if I'm mistaken, but my mind is just blank right now, and I should have Googled that. Who seemingly got badly injured in that accursed, absolutely accursed side of the court. And I'm hopeful he's back as soon as possible, because no matter the team, injuries, and especially this season in which injuries have been what's feeling like constant, hopefully he's back as soon as possible. And teams, I couldn't give less of, if you're playing for us, ASVEL, Panathinaikos, Madrid, Barcelona, or whatever, injuries are the worst thing in this aspect of the world, and especially injuries as bad as this one. Now, getting into the game, we slowly picked up as expected. Game went better and better. We were comfortable from the beginning, building up a 12-point lead almost immediately. And yeah, as we moved on, it just kept a steady and yet a rising pace, where it was 12, then 10, then we went up to 19, and then, of course, we finished the game with let me do the math to not get completely embarrassed, with a 23-point victory. A good win for the team to hopefully regain some form and confidence. Exactly what I am getting into. As I was saying, this win was deemed as the bare minimum. Okay? Because as I said, it's ASVEL. But the way the win came, the way that we didn't just walk around, we fought for the ball, we utilized every chance, we had suddenly seemingly amazing chemistry. We played not just good defense, but strong defense. We went on to fight for every rebound, every attack. I can note down the Nilikina dive for the ball, which led to an open score from, I don't remember who it was. And everyone, seemingly almost everyone, will get into that, because of course every positive has a negative, as does every negative has a positive. But almost everyone, Gizmo decided to stop freaking out. Almost everyone was at the top of their game. And as the comment that I mentioned said, these games need to be used as a momentum booster. People that haven't had the chance to play that much, getting some time, just like Omberos Negipoglou, which again we'll get into. People that have been struggling for form, gaining some form, with the main glaring example of that being the one and the only Evan Fournier. People that are on the top of their game, improving even more, Milutinov and Vezenkov. And people that are at a steady pace, just taking a couple of steps up, Dorsey, Thomas Walker. There are some glaring wrongs in this team. But there is some glaring rights as well. And before I get into personal performances and give the credits due, I want to talk about the fans a bit. I gave a general aspect in what's up in general, what happened, what fans showed up, who didn't. But there is some moments of the game that, in my opinion, perhaps mattered a bit more than the win as well. And the first and the main point was the fans shouting for Coach B. Ever since Coach Bartzokas came back those years ago, he's been hunted, okay? But I'm not even gonna focus on the rabbits across the city. I'm gonna focus within. The division that the support for Bartzokas has caused has three levels, in my opinion. The ones that are staying behind the team and Bartzokas, because he's not only an Olympiacos coach, but he lives and breathes for Olympiacos. We know that. And then the two extremes. And if you know my opinions in general, extremes are always wrong. The one extreme hates Bartzokas and looks to be happy in all the team's mistakes and failures because surely it means that they are quote unquote right for their opinions on Bartzokas. The other extreme loves Bartzokas, not just supports, but loves. And the other extreme doesn't take criticism and thinks that the coach is flawless, which is also false. We know what Bartzokas is. Bartzokas is a legendary coach with some things that he's stuck on that you won't get unstuck on. A medium is needed everywhere. A focal point needs to be stopped sometimes. And with Coach B, it's the same. Coach B is a legend. Coach B is one of the closest things to a true embodiment of Olympiacos in our history, dare I say. But criticism is given when it's due, just like credits are given when they're due. And this season, he's deserved the criticism. Not the hate, nowhere near, but he's deserved the criticism as well. Just like everyone has, in my opinion. Bartzokas has brought some of the most powerful moments in Olympiacos history. Bartzokas is one of the greats, and we should never not appreciate him. That's what I hate. Because there is a difference between criticizing and being selfish. There's a massive difference. But on the other hand, as I said, Coach B isn't flawless. But what he got yesterday, he deserved it. He deserved the applause. He deserved everything that came his way yesterday. And you could see that it meant a lot to him as well. And another person that meant a lot to was Sasha Vezenkov. Sasha, who's also gotten perhaps a bit too much criticism, perhaps enough, depending on the case. There's a lot of people that wanted to pass the agenda that Sasha doesn't want Bartzokas in the team. And the moment that the fans started chanting for Bartzokas, I'm pretty sure Sasha stood up and applauded before B even noticed. A lot of people are trying to pass agendas for this team. And honestly, I hope those people know that it's never gonna work ultimately. There's fans of the wins, there's fans of the losses for their own reasons, and there's fans of Olympiacos. And the third category is always gonna prevail. Another person that stood to be applauded yesterday, same as the Valencia game, was Nico Milutinov. Nico Milutinov, who's by far the best big in the league. I've said that many times, and I'll say that again as much as needed. Is not only keeping steady, but improving. And as I mentioned before, games like Villeurbanne aren't just for the ones that are off form to find their form again. It's for the people dominating to gain even more confidence. And a Milutinov with more confidence should be scary. I've preached ever since last season for Milutinov. And I've said that when Fall got that sadly horrific injury, that he would be able to stand his ground, and so he did. And another person that got massive and much needed applause yesterday was Alec Peters. Some people can have a bad run of form, some people can have bad days. Yesterday wasn't good to Alec. Alec got unlucky, to be fair, because some of those shots really should have gone in, because god damn was he unlucky offensively. But defensively, this one was a monster. He picked up 7 rebounds, 3 assists, scored those 2 threes at the end, and had 3 steals to his name as well. You could see the reaction of everyone the moment Alec finally scored the 3. And him hearing his name from the fans was a necessity for me, because we know how good Alec is, we know how deadly Alec is. And I hope that it helped him as well. And we go back to what I said, that the fans are, at least in this team, one of the main motivators for the players. That's why I went on the rant I did about Seth and the people being there and going there. Of course, my personal who needs Jokic? We have the mighty Nikola Milutinov. Jokic who is who I'm gonna say. But as I was going on to say, before we get into Nico in more detail, my personal MVP, Mr. Flawless himself, Tyler Dorsey. There's been a lot of discussion about what's happening with Tyler and Evan. They're similar duties, similar roles, similar effect to the game. They can't play together. They're minimizing each other's positives. But the moment we're seeing them getting separated time. Tyler did a bit of this from his world-class, incredible run of form, but he's getting back up there. He's getting right back up there. Of course, as I have said multiple times today, these games are momentum boosters and should be used as such. And Tyler had a wonderful game of 22, 6 assists, 0 turnover. And hopefully, we keep seeing that Tyler. And speaking of hopefully, we keep seeing that form of the player, Evan Fournier. The French bold magician is hopefully back. The things that Evan heard, the things that were said about him and again, I'm not looking at the opposition fans because that's expected. I'm looking at our side. Were so horrific. And I'm going to use the quote of Thomas Walkup again. When Thomas Walkup was asked if there was a worry about the man's form, he simply said, and I quote, "Come on, man, we're talking about a Van Fournier. There is nothing more that needed to be said about the Van Fournier." And he'll prove that again and again. The stupidest, outright stupidest thing that I went on to read about the Van Fournier was that he didn't deserve the contract. Are we being for real? We're saying that Van Fournier, one of the best in the league on his day, didn't deserve the contract because of a bad run of games. Evan will go on to do what he does best. And that's fine, his form again. Embarrass the league and embarrass the fans that doubted him as well. But are we fucking for real? A lot of us, and again I'm including me, are very overreactive and emotional as fans. But some stuff that's being written sometimes is so ridiculous. It's so ridiculous. But yeah, Van yesterday in 27 fought for every ball, which is more important than any stat for me. He scored 21, had 2 rebounds, had 1 assist, and had 2 steals to his name. Which, what can you even go on and say about his performance yesterday? Of course, the people that did stand out were mostly Tyler and Sasha, which Sasha will get into, but seeing him not find his groove back necessarily, but find the air he has in his game back, and his confidence slowly is hopefully something that will stick in the coming games as well. Also, something that I did see, but I didn't see officially. If I'm wrong, do correct me in the comments, but I think the postponed game against Fener did get posed up for the 6th of January. If I'll check that later and post about it, of course, on social, which you can find below. But I think that's what I had. Now, moving on to Sasha Vezenkov. Sasha's season has been unique, per se, because we're talking about arguably the star of the team, right? We're talking about the main man of Olympiacos and the name that's usually being referred to when you're talking about Olympiacos PC, aside from Van Fournier, of course, now. And perhaps with that burden, Sasha has taken a lot of shit to his name. I've thrown him a lot of criticism as well. In my opinion, a lot of the criticism was more than deserved sometimes. But to play devil's advocate a bit, Sasha's season has not been bad. It has not been Sasha good. From some strings of seeming unmotivation to some just out and out bad days, which everyone is. You know, Sasha's numbers have been okay. But because they've not been Sasha good, he's eaten the shit that he has. Which again, the criticism is more than valid. The hate isn't. Sasha yesterday, in my opinion, at the very least, seemed more confident than he has in a while. Of course, played 30, put up 17, 5 and 4 with a steal to his name as well. More or less a game yesterday, of course, no one really stood out scoring-wise. But he was there. He was there defensively, he was there offensively, he was there on the rebounds, he was there. Something that he hasn't been in some games. But he was there. And with Sasa there, and hopefully improving, we're talking about a different team again. Which should go without saying, right? After a point. Speaking of different, Frank Ntilikina packing finally something better than average from Ntilikina. Finally some fire to his game from Ntilikina. Putting up 11 3 assists and that wonderful fight for the ball which led to a steal and the open scoring. We saw the Ntilikina we were perhaps promised to see. We saw a guard that, perhaps isn't as a starter, but is a quality depth piece. And again, it's Villerban. I'm not gonna get ahead of myself. But if yesterday's game finds Ntilikina look at his own mistakes, his own flaws, his own positives, and say, I'm gonna work on this, this, and this, maybe finally we'll see the Ntilikina we saw in Partizan as well. And maybe finally we'll see a player that is truly a quality depth piece. But I won't get ahead of myself. Opinion about Olympiacos fans yesterday. I talked about that a bit earlier. And I'll summarize what I said for those of you, of course, that didn't see. Do go rewind or do go watch it later. Olympiacos fans yesterday were perhaps some of the best bands that I've seen the entire season because it wasn't as many. It wasn't as few as I expected, thankfully, but it wasn't as many as usual. But it was the correct people there. It was the correct people there. And that's mostly what matters. And I talked about the moments with chanting for Bartzokas, for Peters, for Milutinov, and such. So I'm very positive. That's exactly what I was going to say about Ntilikina. He has the power. It's the power. It's the Afro power. Of course, that inside joke started with Tyler when he let his hair just poof up. That this is an Olympiacos secret weapon. And as soon as Ntilikina does it as well, he puts up 11 and 3 and fights for every ball. So it's a story that got put up yesterday that, of course, I was tagged in, and it's a post on Twitter that I saw that an Olympiacos team with full afros would go on to win the NBA championship, not the Euroleague. But yeah, sadly, going from the positives to a negative, to a neutral. Don't a whole. I don't know what happened. I really don't. He went from steadily rising to a cold stop in his form. I still believe in the player, I really do. But it seems like his confidence dropped after the Valencia game. And he was okay yesterday, of course. Thankfully, he got time to rest Nico Milutinov as well. he was okay. The first time he got brought onto the game, though, he made 2 mistakes and got subbed right back off. We're talking about a player that I've said this before, needs to be calmer. He needs to be calmer. He needs to work on his decision making. And we're talking about a player that needs to relax. I still believe and I will still die on the hill that Hall is a competent backup. But he has a lot of stuff to work on. And he was working on it. And again, that a deep of form is human, but he needs to get right back up there. Nico Milutinov, of course, we talked about. Alec Peters, we talked about. Just another complete, just round of absolute applause to Pap. Captain Fantastic that even somehow managed to bleed the number 7. Of course, getting absolutely brutally elbowed, for those of you that didn't see the game, straight almost to the eye socket. And as I said last night, some people don't just play for Olympiacos, they live, breathe, and bleed for it. Pap, as soon as Ward got injured, needed to play a lot more minutes, and he's shown up as Papanikolaou. I used to say this phrase last year, and it's always going to be true, that a good Papanikolaou means a good Olympiacos. And when Pap shows up, both at the defensive and the offensive end, Olympiacos just kills it. Pap always has an effect on the game. It's always positive. The difference is how big. And of course, we can't rely solely on Pap. But the leadership effect alone that he has on the team is amazing. And that's just fact. That's as much as people want to deny that. That's just undoubtable fact. I'm not even gonna talk about Saban Lee or his celebration. I'm sorry. Talked about Thomas as well. I'm so happy Omiros got some game time. I'm more than happy that he could actually get him in the game. And he did score. You all know how much I believe in Njipoglu for the future. I've said it before. I've said it even last year when he was playing for AEK. I've said how much I love that player. And I was one of the first to be the happiest when we got him. And my last question for all of you is a question that everyone has managed to put up from yesterday. Why is Kostas Antetokounmpo in the team? I get his restrictions. I get a lot of stuff. But the fact that he couldn't get a singular minute of playing time yesterday says a lot, honestly. So as we close up, just answer me that question in the comments with all that you think. Thank you, as always. And honestly, I'm more than happy to be back at the regular scheduling. Very excited for tomorrow. A lot of Olympiacos to cover today as well. Of course, the football later. And honestly, gonna be a very fun holiday period for the show. RSP is gonna grow more than ever. And 2026 is gonna be historic. Collab coming up. That's gonna come out on Monday. Football show tomorrow. And we move. Thank you all so much for all your support. You can't imagine how much it means. See you soon.